All right, let's just dive right into this. Welcome to This Explainer, where we're unpacking what is literally one of the most monumental shifts in the history of global sports. If you follow football, you already know the 2026 FIFA World Cup is totally breaking all the traditional molds. But today, we aren't just talking about the hype, right? We're going to look directly at the blueprint behind the sheer scale of the master plan for this tournament. So get ready, because the beautiful game, it's about to change forever. 104. Now, this isn't just a random statistic, it's a completely staggering reality. 104 individual matches in a single tournament. To truly grasp the magnitude of this upcoming World Cup, you've got to start right here. I mean, this figure represents more drama, more goals, and more pure football action than the world has ever seen in one setting. It's the absolute core of the expansion we're exploring today. So here's our roadmap for today. First, the biggest expansion ever. Second, the historic Tri-Nation host plan. Third, the billion-dollar master plan. Fourth, logistical nightmares and challenges. And fifth, a new era of football.
Okay, let's kick things off with Section 1, the biggest expansion ever, rewriting the rules of the game. For decades, we've all grown accustomed to this really tight, familiar structure. 32 teams battling it out over 64 matches. But the 2026 format? It absolutely explodes to 48 teams and 104 matches. That is a 50% increase in participation, and it totally changes the entire calculus of the tournament. We're looking at more countries involved than ever before, fundamentally shifting the scale and strategy of the competition from the group stages all the way to the final. So why change a formula that's worked so well for decades? Well, the strategic logic really rests on three main pillars. First, growing football globally by pushing the footprint further into emerging markets across Asia, Africa, and the CONCACAF regions. Second, reaching brand new audiences and demographics. More countries involved means entirely new populations tuning in, buying merch, and just becoming lifelong fans. And finally, increasing overall competition. By bringing a wider array of nations to the grand stage, the goal here is to elevate the standard of play across the entire globe, instead of keeping it, isolated within those traditional European and South American powerhouses. Moving right along to Section 2, Historic Tri-Nation Host Plan. North America unites. Now, to host the largest World Cup in FIFA history, you obviously need a geographical footprint that's equally enormous. We're talking the USA, Canada, and Mexico. Never before has a World Cup been hosted by three separate sovereign nations. These 104 matches are going to be spread across 16 total host cities spanning the entire North American continent. Honestly, the scale of infrastructure, border security, and just the sheer organizational coordination required between these three countries to pull this off, it's truly mind-boggling. All right, Section 3, the billion-dollar master plan, the economics of expansion. Billions of dollars. When you scale up to 48 teams across an entire continent, you are ultimately executing a massive economic master plan. The projected revenue designed to be generated by this expanded format basically shatters all previous records, targeting figures upwards of $11 billion. Let that sink in. The financial stakes have quite literally never been higher for the sport, the host nations, or the governing bodies organizing the whole shebang. So where are all those billions actually coming from? First up, a major tourism boost as fans from 48 different nations flood into North America. Next, we're looking at record-breaking attendance expectations. We're talking about utilizing these ultra-modern, massive NFL-caliber stadiums across the U.S., plus flagship arenas in Canada and Mexico that easily hold tens of thousands of fans per game. Then you've got surging sponsorship growth and exploding broadcasting revenue. When you add 40 matches and an entirely new global markets tuning in, the value of TV rights and brand partnerships just skyrockets. Added in advanced tech and digital fan engagement, and every single one of these drivers compounds on the others to create an absolute financial juggernaut. Now, it's incredibly exciting to look at those numbers and that level of growth for sure, but it kind of forces us to step back and ask a really vital question here. Is bigger always better? Because when you scale something up to this crazy magnitude, there are inevitable realities that just have to be faced. Which brings us to Section 4, logistical nightmares and challenges, the price of expansion. As much as this expansion brings huge opportunities, there are some severe logistical hurdles we need to talk about. First, managing the sheer volume of 104 matches creates a highly complex scheduling puzzle for global broadcast windows and referee assignments. Second, and this is perhaps the most critical, is battling severe player fatigue. Professional footballers already play these incredibly demanding year-round schedules for their clubs. Adding an extended tournament raises some very valid concerns about the physical toll on these athletes. And then, add in the brutal travel distances. I mean, imagine playing a grueling group stage match in the high altitude of Mexico City and then having to fly thousands of miles to the rainy coast of Vancouver for your knockout game. It becomes a physical nightmare that teams will have to meticulously navigate.
Finally, Section 5, a new era of football, underdogs and unforgettable moments. At its core, this expansion means emerging debut nations are finally going to get their first real shot at World Cup glory. This rule change opens the door for underdog countries that have literally been fighting for decades to finally step onto the grandest stage. It allows these inspiring, developing football programs to make history for their people, proving once and for all that they belong under the brightest lights. And honestly, that is the true magic of this rule change.
So, when you combine those emerging underdogs with the traditional titans of the sport across 104 matches, what can we as fans actually expect? Well, bigger, fresh rivalries as new nations clash for the very first time. More shocking, giant-killing upsets, simply because more teams mean a statistically higher chance of a Cinderella story. We're going to see increased drama and goals just by virtue of having significantly more playing time on the schedule. And ultimately, more historic moments that will be talked about for generations. At the end of the day, all the logistics and all the billions of dollars funnel down to produce pure, unadulterated entertainment right on the pitch.
Which leaves us with one final, really fascinating question as we watch this master plan unfold. With 48 teams, 104 matches, and 16 cities spread across 3 countries, who will ultimately conquer the biggest World Cup in history? It's going to be an absolutely thrilling ride to find out. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today. And hey, keep your eyes on the pitch.